How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, we're going to talk about getting splashed. What does that mean? That means when an inmate decides to throw bodily fluid your way, a cocktail, if you will, feces, urine, vomit, semen, you name it, a mixture of everything, saliva. It's a tough topic to discuss because there could be some controversy to how things are handled after you are splashed. The dialogue actually, the reason why we want to do a separate video on it is because me and Russ had a dialogue on this yesterday because it happened to come up in the live feed. And then me and Russ made a decision to go ahead and maybe do a full video on this because definitely, guys, there are going to be some good proactive measures we're going to mention. Some reactionary measures, unfortunately, because sometimes you are going to get splashed. But with the reactionary measures, that you could find some controversy. Now, guys, this has been going on. Oh shit! You know, us getting splashed is nothing new, but maybe there are some ideas here that we can utilize to try to do our best to minimize these assaults. You know, or minimize if we do get assaulted, minimize the effect it can have on us. So, guys, I have two sponsors. We have American Military University. If you guys are looking to that higher education, getting that degree, please check out American Military University. It's a great school. Online, very supportive of what I do on Tier Talk, also very supportive of what we do in the corrections profession. And we also have Guardian RFID, from inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based businesses and artificial intelligence. Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit Guardian RFID for more information. So we're going to have two guests on with me. First guest we have is, well, who we had on yesterday, Russ Hamilton. What's up, Russ?
Hey, Anthony, glad to be here. This is a nasty and yet important topic, and so I'm looking to get in there and hash it out.
Hey, Russ, do you mind introducing yourself again to our audience and tell us what you got going on with Keepers?
Absolutely. My name is Russ Hamilton. I am a retired and former sergeant with California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I was also a senior juvenile correctional officer for a local juvenile detention facility here locally. I also now currently work as a case manager for reentry and rehabilitation for a local jail and probation department. And Keepers of Chaos is my baby, which I founded on Facebook. And we have very nearly 5,000 members now. And Keepers of Chaos is all about the profession and the professionality of everyone involved in corrections.
What I like about Russ now doing reentry, I mean, it's good to have someone with that custody background. Inmate wants to take a program. Maybe at first you're nice and say, you got to take the program. But then if you don't, then Russ comes in the room, you're going to take the fucking program. You know, that's my reentry. That's how we do it. Russ gone to the other side. But it's great because now this completes the journey for us. I think that's pretty cool. And we also have none other than William Young from Just Corrections and published author, When Home Becomes a Housing Unit, and the Nothing That Never Happened. What's up, Will?
Hey, how are we doing today? Russ is drinking out of a dirty jar, and I've got my little.
Let's
water
see the
bottle
jar,
here.
Russ.
Let's see the jar, Russ. That's moonshine, I think.
It's not moonshine. You're not going to like this, but it's vinegar.
Oh,
it's pickle juice. I'm going to send Russ a couple of cases of water after this show. Overnight, you some water. So you can just drink. I don't know about the vinegar. What the vinegar's about?
It's my claim. It's just I don't know. It just seems to help with everything that I do because I'm constantly sore, and it seems to help the soreness.
There you go. There you go.
So hey, Will, you mind introducing yourself? It's been a bit.
Yeah, I'm William Young. I am the author of When Home Becomes a Housing Unit and The Nothing That Never Happened. I've been a correctional officer since 2005. I have a little YouTube channel called Just Corrections. And my focus is the mental and emotional impact that this career has on officers.
And obviously being splashed definitely does fall into that, correct?
Yeah, I would think it messes with you a little bit.
Yeah. So real quick, let's just get some terminology out of the way. I'll go with Russ first. I've used the term splashed. I know during this dialogue, maybe some of the terminology would change. So I want people to make sure that when they hear these certain terms, it pretty much means the same thing. But I've used splash. What other terminology would be used for this, Russ?
So the terminology that I tend to use is the word gassed. And the reason that I use that is because that's the way I learned it in California Department of Corrections. But more than that, that was the way the terminology was actually adopted into the California Penal Code when it made it a felony to do such a thing to any correctional peace officer or other correctional deputy, detention officer, so forth within the state. And so it was a good tool that we were able to, have and use in order to actually prosecute these crimes as felonies.
And do you have any other terminology on that, Will? Do you guys call it something different?
No, we call it gassing, being gassed.
Yeah, so that's actually good, keeping it simple. If you guys have any different terminology, let me know. So I think during the dialogue, you have to realize something. So this happens a lot, unfortunately. Sometimes it could be failure from the administrative end not to implement really good strategic measures that the front line can follow out, or, and we'll discuss it too, you have to be fair, complacency on the front line level as well, which, you can have all the strategies in the world on top, but if it's not being carried out from the front line, at one point there's going to be some accountability there because, again, the management's doing what they can to protect, the officers or the front line from being splashed. So they may come up with these strategic ideas, but we do rely on the front line to carry those out. Now, let's be fair. On the other side, the front line needs strategies, so they're expecting management to have these discussions, step up, and provide them with solutions. And then hopefully we all work together in agreement. So again, we're looking at proactive measures, and then there's the reactionary. I believe during this discussion, when we get to the reactionary part, we don't know where each person is going to go here. We have 3 different perspectives, but we want you to know this is really not going to be a right or wrong. We're all experienced, so the reason when we say things, it definitely could be controversial, but it is a different perspective, and it kind of lets us know where we're at, and we have to be open to where those 3 perspectives are coming from. We got frontline, then we got supervisory level, and then we have the higher level management level. So there's going to be 3 different eyes or sets of eyes looking at this and trying to discover, what are the best routes, but then also where the biggest liability is. Remember that, guys, liability. We're not the only ones that review these incidences. So let's do this first. Let's look at some of the proactive measures first to minimize being splashed. So let's start this first. Let's go from the frontline perspective first. So Will, we're on the floor right now, let's say, and you got inmates that just happen to be splashing staff. What are some of the things as let's say a senior cop that you're going to try to tell your rookie cop right on the floor to say, hey, these are the things we need to do right now to minimize us getting splashed or minimize the opportunity for that?
Well, the main thing is taking care of the contraband in the cell, or the clutter. I mean, if they're saving milk cartons, if they're saving styrofoam cups, if they're, if you notice that they got a cup kind of sitting to the back a little bit, it's just kind of being aware of those things. And then when they're out for their rec, pulling those nuisance items out, or if you have the opportunity to go in and get those, to kind of clear out those nuisance items. So you want to, the very first thing, right, is to limit their opportunity to have a container to collect those things. And that's one of the biggest things in our facility. If we see those nuisance items, those, milk cartons, we'll attempt to get them. Or, when like I said, when they're out on their rec, or, by the safest means necessary. And then the other thing is just to be mindful. Our doors are solid. We have hatches, food hatches. And so when you're issuing trays or medication, be mindful of where you stand. Be mindful of where the inmate is in the cell when you're handing those things, passing those things back and forth. And really, anytime you open one of those hatches, or you have an individual in one of those hatches, you should be prepared for something to come flying out of there. So for me, it's all about the kind of, like I said, being proactive and minimizing the opportunity for them to even get to you with that first.
Yeah, and I love the fact, I think it gets overlooked, about how important it is for us to really check on that clutter. For anything. I mean, you have inmates that now collect the tinfoil from the juices so they can light stuff up through the outlets, And then obviously, you know, Russ, if you're a supervisor and you're walking around, I mean, these are things that you're going to reinforce to make sure it's being done. But what about from a supervisory perspective? What are the things that you're looking at?
Well, you know, as a supervisor, you want to kind of be able to step in there and just, you know, remind your people that there's, you know, there's these defensive tactics, measures that you can take to help stop this. I love what Will brought up there. You know, if they don't have something to put that in, it's really hard for them to get you, or at least get you very good. The next thing, of course, is just, you know, your overall positioning with regards to that inmate. You know, you should be watching what he's doing. If he's too close to the front and you need to open that food port, or you need to talk to him, have him move back away. You know, have him at least show you your hands. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we're also wearing any necessary protective garments. In California, if you were in a SHU or an ADSEG unit, or some of the other restrictive housing features or units, you would wear a face shield, right? And so that at least protects that, and, you know, gives you a chance to, you know, avoid any contact with your mucosa that can spread the disease and that kind of thing. So those are all things that we can do to stop it in the first place, because that's where we would like to be ultimately, to not have to, you know, end up with an incident package and charges and that kind of thing. But, you know, it's not a perfect world, so we are going to eventually get to talking about that too.
Right. Now, obviously there are some differences. You do have facilities that still have the open bars, and then you have the facilities that are really moving away to the solid doors. Obviously, we should be at that point now where we get to those solid doors, but obviously the older facilities are going to have those open bars. The facilities with the solid doors are going to have the crevice. That's what you have to worry about, because obviously even that little crevice, something could throw out. So, you know, from a strategic side, proactive side, if you will, you know, we could always put shields over those crevice spots, at least towards the side. That, you know, if you do have an inmate that's a splasher, if you don't have a lot of money, let's say the facility's low on money, you could designate a few cells that can be utilized with that little shield that covers the crevice, so the inmate really can't, you know, you want to minimize the opportunity. You also, I like what Will said before, and Russ partnered on that, is from a higher level, we could also limit what items they're allowed to buy on commissary. So again, if you get the inmate that's labeled as a splasher, sorry, you're not getting bottles of shampoo. You're getting a daily packet. You know, you're not getting even two. You're getting a toothpaste. You're getting a daily packet. You know, water bottles. I'm sorry. There's ways to control what they're able to have, even from the computer system. So what they can do, your business office should be able to lock out certain items once the inmate is labeled as a splasher or found guilty of a pattern of this behavior. Also, Russ touched on something that's important as well. I want to make sure we get that, but this is really a partnership now with the front line and management, is that we have what they call back of the cell orders. You know, so what you technically could do is you don't open that food port until that inmate goes to the back of the cell. And if by chance, let's say you're delivering food and the inmate refuses to go to the back of the cell, you don't open the food port. You call for a supervisor, you work out some angle, but the inmate does not go to the back of the cell, then they don't get fed that day. I mean, it's just that simple. And again, those things would be noted in the logbook, but the back of the cell order usually comes from a higher level managerial position, because again, you know, it's something that needs to be documented, and usually there's a reason for it. I can justify back of the cell orders when you have an inmate that loves to splash. And now, here's the other thing. Now, this has been a problem for many years. We've done videos on this in the past before. The managing of the food port matters. We cannot be complacent when it comes to dealing with that food port. And I think no matter how strategic front management can be, if front line is not policing each other with that food port and reminding each other, hey, you better close that. Like, I mean, for me, that's always been zero tolerance. If a food port's open, I would take my partner and I would talk to him, you know, privately in the area, and I would literally zero tolerance for that because of all the dangers that can happen if that's left open. So I'll go with Will first, but Will, front line, you know, pushing the importance of closing that damn food port. You're muted, Will, and I'm glad I got a chance to say that.
No, I was just kidding. I wasn't really muted. No,
okay.
I had to mute myself just because I want to interrupt and get in there. No, I think that nowadays we have so many plans and so many tools in place that we have to slow down. You just have to slow down your response and be a little more strategic. And so part of that is, you're serving breakfast trays. You got a guy that's opening the hatches. You're throwing them in, opening the hatches, throwing them in. Somebody's got to close them. You have to close them. Their food ports are there for a reason. Those doors are there for a reason. The tools, and you're right, the facility can give us all the tools in the world, but if we're not using them, Russ talked about those face shields. If we're not using them, if we're not geared up, then, I mean, it sort of what happens is on us too. But you have to close it. Have to close the port. You have to take time. You have to slow down. Like you talked about the get to the back of the cell. I mean, that's kind of common sense. Even if there's not an order and you have an individual, you're working in there and you just know. I mean, these frontliners, these people in the housing units, they know. They know their trouble, guys. Have him stand in the back of the cell. Okay, he won't. Ask him 2 or 3 times, whatever your policy is, and then move on. Feed everybody else breakfast and come back. There's no reason to rush. There's no reason to put your safety in jeopardy just so you can hurry through breakfast or hurry through med pass. I mean, you don't want to take any risk, any corner you cut is going to put you in some sort of danger.
Yeah, I love that, Will. And kind of in partnership with the frontline supervisor on scene, I mean, what are the ways that you're going to reinforce the need to close that food port? I mean, are you, as a supervisor now, meant to reinforce that if you don't see it being done from the front line? Russ?
Well, I think the thing to, keep in mind is that those food ports, they're covered by policy and procedure. And the thing that you always want to do is the only time a food port is open is while you're there. There's too many cases that I've seen where, staff get lax and they decide.
I just crossed over that. That was spot on what you just said, Russ. And we're allowed to do that. We can cut each other off just to make Russ or William's head get a little bit bigger. But I like what you said. I think that's pretty much a sentence that should get put on every shirt that works in corrections. You said something about a food port should not be open unless you're there.
Exactly. I mean,
what does that actually mean, Russ?
Well, that means that you're paying direct and constant observation of what's going on with that port. I've seen staff that they decide that they're going to get lax and they're going to let these guys visit and they're going to let them talk. And, sometimes they're going to, let those food ports down. And then the next thing you know, inmates are throwing fish lines and trying to get things back and forth. And then you've got staff members that at some point, at the end of the night, even if it's only then, they have to go up there and close those things. And it's given those inmates all the time that they need to prepare an attack, which could be, as we've talked about, gassing. It could also be something even worse like spearing or things like that. So, keep them closed all of the time, except when you're actually there and you're physically observing exactly what's going on, so that if something starts to happen, you can stop it or you can back away, get a supervisor, deploy OC agents or whatever the case may be. But when you're not there, it's being untended, and then you don't know the condition that things are in. I mean, it could be a preparation to escape for all you know, but most likely it's going to be some kind of planned attack on staff. Right.
Now, Russ touched on something that is going to cross into the controversial part, and Russ knows the use of OC. So I before I move to the next part, because this is where the dialogue is going to be, can we think of any other measure right now? I mean, strategically or more strategically or proactive. Will, anything else you want to add, or Russ, before we move to the next part, which is going to be the bit of the discussion?
Can I just say that I could listen to Russ? Like, I need Russ recorded on my phone so I could just listen to him when I go to sleep and just through osmosis get, just centuries worth of correctional knowledge it just into my brain. That would be so awesome. Well, no, I think he said it all. He said, close the food port. Close the freaking food port. That's all you need to do. I mean, what else do you need to do?
Well, you know what's funny about that? In the compliment, Russ, he said you're a few hundred years old. He said,
yeah, well, no. I said he had centuries of correctional knowledge, which means he's older than that.
All right. I was gonna say, yeah, Russ. You're fucking immortal.
Yes, he is. He's on the Mount Rushmore of corrections.
Without the teeth.
All right, guys. To be honest with you guys, Russ has been in corrections. I mean, right now, let me just get a close up of Russ. Russ has been in corrections for about 5 years, and he's 23.
Right.
Apart from one of the memes. All right, so guys, this is where the discussion is going to get a little tough because actually Russ touched into it a little bit when we get into the OC. So, reacting. So we're going to have three perspectives here. One perspective is definitely going to be something where you have to react, you have to do something so the inmate doesn't splash again, right? We get that. Maybe two, actually. Maybe there's two perspectives because the other perspective is going to be, whoa, be careful. Liability. Is it going to look like we're retaliating? And this is where we tend to not be on the same page between maybe the higher level and the lower level. So I think what we could do today is kind of have that discussion just so you get an understanding. Now, I get it. Some may agree or disagree. It's really not about that. Right now, it's just really, let's just put it out there so we build an understanding of why we see things a little bit differently. So I guess we can kind of start off with this, and I'll go with Russ first because he kind of touched in on it a little bit. It is, so you just, let's say you did a tour, Russ, as a sergeant, that's fine, and you just got splashed through a closed cell door through the crevice, okay? Let's say the inmate used a styrofoam cup, whatever it is, right? Do you still consider that inmate a threat?
Okay, so when we just throw that particular word around, threat, I don't think that encompasses enough of what we need to do with regards to not just safety but security as well. So what I'll tell you is, everyone would rather go in and get their pound of flesh, but we can't do that, right? We're held to a higher standard. We have an oath that we've sworn to uphold. We have to, execute the laws faithfully, and that includes policy and procedure because that's part of administrative law. So what we want to do is different from what we actually do. What we have to do is we have to keep in mind that if there is a legitimate penological interest in getting that inmate out of that cell, then we probably need to do that. Now, that might take some time. It's probably not going to be an emergent situation, but yeah, we might need to take that inmate out in order to take those things away from him that he used to splash. We might need to move him to a dry cell so that we can control his actions and keep him from, carrying out further attacks. This is going to be a thing where his particular spot in that unit or that particular cell might involve actually interfering with the rest of operations. So is that a legitimate penological interest in keeping our day-to-day operations going? It is. But at the same time, we're going to need to call in medical staff, mental staff. We're going to have to get that team together. We're going to have to work at giving this inmate whatever the specified cool down period is in your policies and procedures, and then possibly get them out of there. If we have the option and he's far enough away that he's not going to otherwise impact operations, and we have some way of controlling the water in that cell, we might need to turn that off. And then but we also need to make sure that we've logged that and that we've taken other proactive measures. And so there may not be a reason to go in. But what we just have to do is we have to be smart and we have to understand those words, legitimate penological interest. We don't try and get around them just to get our pound of flesh out, no matter how bad we feel about it. And I can sympathize and empathize because I've had the dookie on me before. So that's what I would say. That's the lens that we need to look at it from.
Right. Now, by the way, guys, if you ever get splashed, just to get this out of the way so we don't forget, because you are a correctional officer in the performance of your duties, it could be prosecuted. I mean, you'll have the investigative agency work with the prosecutor's office, but you have to get checked by medical. If you get splashed, you got to take the trip out and you got to be checked. I just want people to add that so we don't forget. And if the person is found guilty, the good thing about it is that their sentence will be consecutive to what they're already serving. It's not supposed to run concurrent. Now, here's the concern. So in the eyes of the public, so now mind you guys, I get it from the frontline perspective, but I want to give you another perspective. It's not about whether I agree with it or not, but I have to present another perspective just to kind of enlighten us a little bit. So here's what's going on with the public, and most of the time, the people that really don't have an understanding of what we do, that are going to review the methods we take. Because especially here, if something happens, the inmate makes a complaint, the family makes a complaint, I'll guarantee you there'll be a use of force review, and it's going to travel up, and then it's going to come back down. And what they're going to ask is, why was the use of force necessary? So what you have here is you have a prepared use of force right now. This is not a use of force that's immediate. You know, this is a use of force now that is technically prepared. So like Russ said, you know, you're going to have your, oh, hold on, guys. I asked my wife to get me a cup of coffee.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no, she does it. I'm not lying. I don't even have to say thank you because it's just automatic.
You better say thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, you're right.
That's only audio. That's not video. It never happened.
Oh, you see what she was going to do just now?
Right.
She shut off the light.
You do it. Do it.
Not only does that mess up the show, I would have busted my ass.
I think she
freaking turn the light on.
I think she keeps you down there, is what I think.
No, she doesn't.
I think you have to stay down.
This is my home. I got some chains over here. So, and look at my spotlight, whatever the hell it is.
Right.
Whatever the fuck. I can't do it. Whatever that. I can't do it. Where the hell is it? Wait, right there. Somewhere. I don't know where I'm doing that. So it's a prepared use of force. So when it comes to a prepared use of force, you have to be able to justify where the emergent need is, the preservation of life. What was your need to go in there? Was your need really to go in there? Because this is what they ask you guys, and I get it. Was there an emergent need to go in there and grab that shampoo bottle? Does the inmate pose a significant threat to your well-being behind a locked cell? So I like what Russ said, is that if we feel we have to move him or her, whatever it is, we'll make all efforts to de-escalate. And then if that doesn't work, we can implement policies to try to get a cell extraction going. But here's the concern, and this is where it becomes very controversial. So obviously we know the people that were involved, the officer that got splashed, the staff member got splashed, well, technically in this case, the officer that got splashed, you have to have negative contact with that inmate. So the moment you get splashed, you're off scene. You know, you're no longer on this unit. That eliminates part of the retaliation concern, just in case someone wants to mention that. The concern is that some of these inmates, they may want to splash you because they're expecting you guys to go in there and pull them out. And then it becomes harder for us to justify why we had to do that. And again, we get why, but it's hard to explain when you get a cell extraction going and let's say someone's injured or whatnot, that you had to go in there immediately to get that shampoo bottle, or that you had to go in there immediately to get that cup. And the sad thing is, guys, we'll put measures in place, but there are a lot of times where, and again, I'm not minimizing what the inmate done. I'm not. But remember, our job is also to control their behavior and be proactive. Sometimes when we get splashed, and please bear with me, just to keep it up in the air, just to be fair with it, we're complacent. Again, a food port left open, we get splashed. Now, we got this whole shit going on. We're in chaos mode right now. And then when manager was like, well, let me ask you a question. Before we even think about running this cell extraction, how did Hamilton get splashed? Oh, because his partner left the food port open. And now, again, not minimizing the accountability that you're giving towards the inmate. I'm not saying that, but hear me out. What justifies everything happening right now is that we had an officer right now that left the food port open. So now you're going to I got a cell extraction going, a chance for potential injuries. Am I going to hold that officer responsible? So I got an officer that just got splashed with human feces, pissed off as hell, but they could be looking at charges because now we're in this position now where we have to do it because they decided to leave the food port open. And guys, frontline perspective, what do you get from what I'm just out of curiosity? Am I expressing concerns that make sense?
Well, yeah, I'm going to say that there's a huge difference between how we did it 20 years ago and how we do it now. And so when I'm listening, first of all, I want to say this to anybody listening to Russ prior to Anthony going, and then the things that Anthony said. the career saving advice is what this is right now. This segment, career saving advice, and so the automatic.
Sorry,
thing,
you got to say that again. That
okay,
was such a great way to. I mean, really, I mean that's
I wrote
really
it down.
just a great way.
Career
saving
advice, and I'll tell you why. And the first thing that I wrote down when Russ was going is, what did you do? What and Frontline's going to hate that. What did you do that led up to this, right? And so when you're talking about you're getting splashed, now you're popping the door, you're going in, you're fighting, you know, somebody gets hurt, there's injuries, that they're going to ask you, what'd you do? Did we have to go in? And the answer, guys, in this scenario, the door is shut. No, you don't. You can't. So I wrote down, what did you do and what could you have done? Because corrections has shifted, guys. We cannot go in and get into a physical altercation with an individual who threw feces at us, who spit at us, who you know, because our pride's hurt, because we feel slighted, because they threw that on us, if there is no immediate threat. I mean, that's just what it is, guys. If you want to get fired, if you want to get charged, if you want to go to jail, then go in. Open the door, pop it, beat the shit out of the inmate. But what these guys said, and what I'm saying as from the frontline perspective, and we've all been there, so we all know, is your use of force policy states that you have to stop the force once the threat is gone. An inmate behind a locked door is not a threat. Okay, an inmate, unless he's self-harming, unless he's doing something, tearing up the room, whatever. But you still, at that point, it's a planned use of force. You call up your negotiators, you call up your CERT team, you call up your SORT team, whatever your policies say. But you cannot go in, and this is where a lot of people get in trouble. A lot of frontliners, and I've seen this firsthand. Is you want, like Russ said, you want your pound of flesh. A guy threw shit on you. Maybe you did something, maybe you didn't. You're slipping a little bit. They caught you slipping. You got some shit thrown on you, and now you want to kick the crap out of them. You can't. And so when I say, hey, get out of here, then you got to get out of here. You got to step aside. And then me coming in, I'm upset about it, right? I'm upset that my partner got shit thrown on him, but I've got to control myself. That's the difference. We have a controlled response. We have policies in place, and we have a career, man. We have mouths to feed. You cannot go in and just do whatever you want for something like this.
Right. I want to add something before we get to Russ. We're talking about an inmate that's obviously going to be non-compliant at this point. If you do have an inmate that's compliant, obviously those that were assaulted, they cannot be involved in this. I would bring up a camera escort, get a supervisor. The inmate's willing to put his hands through the food port. That's fine. Lock him up and get him where he's got to go from point A to point B. At that point, there's really not much of a discussion there because we're going to move him.
Right.
The inmate's compliant. We're going to take the inmate from point A to point B. And again, I like the camera escort issue, making sure that we covered so the inmate can't claim that we retaliated against them at any point. The point is, and again, if the inmate does splash, well, obviously they're going to go from one area to like a holding area or a pre-hearing detention or whatever it is, depending on, how you handle the institutional infractions that later could become something severe. But having said that, the question now is, we know why that's a needed move. We do. But sometimes the public doesn't, because if the inmate's in there in a cell by themselves and they're not with a cellmate and they're not really acting irate after they splash you, let's say they're calm, we have to be able to justify why we need to go in there. Now, mind you, if it becomes a preservation of life issue, or let's say they were with a cellmate and they start assaulting the cellmate, this is not really a cell extraction. This is a code now. The
Right.
code's going to supersede the cell extraction. We're going to have to get in there and do what we got to do to protect that inmate, protect the cellmate. But with a cell extraction, usually there's a prepared time to get your ducks in a row, and then policy, like you're going to spray them once and you're going to wait and you're going to spray them again, and then the team's going to go in and take them out. But I just want to make sure we know that we're talking about an inmate that we're going to assume at this point is resistant to, our want to take them to that next location to, you know, have their case heard or to be held there until their case is heard. So now we have to make a choice. The choice is going to be, do we really have to get this inmate out? Is there any way that we can manage them still within the in that cell? And how much of a threat does this person pose before we decide that we're going to use a use of force? So, Russ, what's your thoughts? I think Will explained it perfectly with that that line, you know, about, you know, it is career saving advice. What's your thoughts on what Will said?
Yeah, well, yeah, just going back to that, you know, I found it really interesting, you know, that, you know, Will and I are, you know, eye and eye on that, and he was fleshing out a little bit of what I was saying, and he said it really well and everything, and yet at the same time, I'm like, dang, I just
Hey, Russ,
hate
read
having to
what's
hear
in
that.
front of you. Read the writing on the bottom. You're not even looking at it.
Wow.
Okay, go again.
Yet. You guys. So anyway, back to what I was saying about Will is, you know, we're right there with each other. And yet what he's saying, that I was thinking, man, this really sucks, this situation, because we can't do what we want to do. And so even though it's just a discussion, I'm ticked off. I'm ticked off that he can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it. And it's just the way it is. So you got to understand that, you know, we have to be, you know, masters of our own emotions in things like that. And if it's making us, or at least me, you know, just kind of a little bit ticked off at the way policy and procedure is right now, imagine how that is when it comes to a real life situation. So we really have to master that. And as far as, you know, the other things that surround all that we get going on as to, you know, whether or not we're going to do the extraction, you know, this is probably going to be a planned use of force rather than an emergent use of force. Because, you know, we do have to get that guy out of there. We do maybe have a legitimate penological interest beyond just, you know, immediate threat to physical threat to ourselves. But it's one of those things where at that point we have to do the smart things. And so we start thinking about the smart things that we have to do. We have to bring out those cameras, right? We have to make sure that we document what we're doing, that we take video of the extraction, that we've also, you know, preserved the evidence that we have so far. You know, if you get gassed in one of these units and you have a chance to, you know, you got to get it off right away. Probably that's just the natural reaction. But if you have a chance to look up at a camera, take a picture first, and that's possible, let's do that, right? And then don't throw your jumpsuit away. You're going to want to, you know, preserve that in a paper bag, not a plastic bag, right? We have to give that a chance to dry out so that we don't create something that's really noxious. But that's going to be part of it. And, you know, you get asked that question, well, you know what, we could prove that this didn't happen if they had just saved the jumpsuit, which they didn't do. So now you've lost out on a chance perhaps to, you know, get your true pound of flesh the real legal way out of this guy. So we want to do those things. We want to make sure that we also, you know, have good open communication lines with our district attorneys, or depending on how your state operates, our attorney generals, to make sure that we can prosecute these things. And last but not least, I've become a proponent of this as of late. Always sue them for the maximum amount in small claims court. You know, maybe it'll shut someone down in the future, maybe it won't. But you know what? At least you can keep them from having any money on their books for the rest of however long to pay off $10,000. You're mute. I got you.
Damn it. You know, can I tell you something? My finger was right there before you said it.
Oh,
that's payback for the Amazon joke. Go publish a book. So, hey, so listen. So check this out. So if you let's say, you know, the extraction, I don't know how in certain facilities they're approved. In certain facilities, maybe the supervisor on site can, or maybe it's higher level because of the liability. And again, you don't want something to be seen as retaliatory. So one of the things that they're going to ask you is, what's the objective of this extraction? So I'll give you an example. Is there a likelihood he can splash you again? In an open bar setting, yes. So at that point, I'm going to get that off. I'm going to be able to go in there, get him out, because it's an open bar, of course, you know. But if it was, he was only able to splash you because you left the food port open, and now is the food port closed, what's the likelihood of him being able to splash you again? So I also think the layout matters. If I'm working at a facility that's older and it's got the open bars, yeah, I'm going to have to go in there. It's an open bar. You know, likelihood is you could have stuff that could do it again. So you know what? And I think that's going to be justified. Now, on the adverse of that, if I got a cell door and the first issue I got splashed was because the food port was open and I got splashed, and they're like, well, can he splash you now? No, I closed the food port. What's the objective now? You know, what are we doing? We're just going to take him out to get evaluated medical and bring him back in. And, you know, and the concern how the public looks at it is when you have to justify the objective, they want to make sure that people can't see it as being retaliatory. They see it as being preventive. So again, the open bar, preventive. Not going to get splashed again. Got to get him out. Once you close that food port, they're going to, you know, for the closed door, they're going to ask you, well, what was the likelihood of him splashing you again? You know, well, the food port was closed. So at this point, I don't get why you had to do the cell extraction. Well, to get the shampoo bottle out, okay. But could he have splashed you with it if you closed the food port? No. And didn't you close the food port? Yeah. Is the shampoo bottle a threat to their safety and well-being at that point? Well, you know, no. So again, it's a lot of concerns that have to be addressed when it comes to that need. So what's your thoughts on that, Will, just out of curiosity?
No, I mean, I think you're right. This is a pretty cut and dry thing, and I know that officers are frustrated. I know that people get pissed off when this kind of thing happens, but you cannot you have to look. If you've ever sat in a grand jury or if you've ever talked to an attorney after use of force, everything is scrutinized. And if it's a matter of, hey, we're pulling the inmate out because there's feces all over the cell and they flooded their cell and they did all this and we got to move them to a clean room, that's fine. But in our facility, we call it the correctional objective. What is the correctional objective? Getting a shampoo bottle is not a correctional objective. Moving the inmate from one room to another for no reason is not a correctional objective. So you have to be able to explain in a court of law why you did the things that they saw. I mean, it's just, that's what it is. So, I mean, to me, this is, for a guy who's been in corrections for a while, I can see the younger staff or the less experienced staff getting all worked up and being super excited about this. And yeah, it pisses us off, but at the end of the day, man, this is, your hands are tied. You can't do anything about it.
Hey, Will, can I ask something before we get to Russ? Because I know Russ wants to touch on this too. I just want to ask one thing. What do you think? I just want to see, just from the front line perspective. So we explain where the liability is, right? And we kind of explained, you mentioned the correctional objective, which has to be in line with, our policies, our procedures, and obviously protecting the agency, protecting ourselves individually, whatever it is, from lawsuits. What do you think would be, let's say I close the food port, right? So there's no way he could splash me again. There's no immediate threat to the inmate's safety and well-being, no immediate threat to my well-being. I want to get into the mindset of a frontline professional who would still want to go in there. What do you think that mindset it can kind of lead to liability if it's looking at be just more of I get him out, more of aggressive approach?
Well, I mean, absolutely. If you are just if you're upset, if you're pissed off, if you have no control over your emotions, if you are. And it's hard. I mean, when you get shit thrown at you, when you get assaulted, our tempers are up here all the time. We're hypervigilant all the time. But yeah, so I have seen and heard stories of officers that they'll make up reasons. I think he had I thought I saw something sharp in there. I thought, and we'll go in there and there's nothing in there. There's a paper bag or there's, there's people when they're angry, when they're not thinking clearly, will come up with any excuse to go in and to do what? To beat up a guy with 6 other guys on your side? I mean, that's not even, what does that even do? So what it does is it puts all 6 of those officers who followed you in because they got your back, it puts them all in a trick bag now. Now we all have to write reports. Now we all have to go to court. For what? And that's, like I said, that's one of the things that it's an unpopular thing to say. But I think the vets know it. I mean, you just can't do it. I mean, I know the rookies want to go in. I know the less controlled staff want to go in, but it's not something we can do.
See, this is. I'm so happy we're having this dialogue. Hopefully, people get to understand it because this is like what Will said, career saving. And I love what you said again. Just another thing you said, is the shampoo bottle a correctional objective? It's an item that they're allowed to have, even though I get it. now it's kind of become like this weapon. It wasn't a threat before that. Now that you shut the door, again, it's not saying we'll never get to the inmate. It's not saying that. It's
well, and
just
that's
saying
the thing.
we got to, make sure things are in point. Our emotions are in check, and eventually we could revisit something in the morning. Just we have them secured, and we'll get back to it. But what were you going to say? Well,
the question is, you say, well, we have to go in and get that shampoo bottle. Well, the guy's going to get wrecked in 2 hours. He's going to come out. He's going to want to use the phone. Just go in and get the shampoo bottle then. I mean, those kind of things, if he wants to, at some point he's going to come out. And then you can get those nuisance items. You can clear them out. And then again, as a supervisor, Russ, or an administrator, anybody, why does that guy have 15 shampoo bottles in there? He didn't get 15 shampoo bottles yesterday. This has been, you've been in this housing unit for 3 months. Why does he have all this stuff in here? Why didn't we take this stuff before? And that's why I say, what did you do? What could you have done? And so when you go in, and I've heard this, I've been in the room with this. When you go in and you get into a physical altercation, what was your responsibility in that? What could you have done to prevent that? What did you do leading up to that? Because that's the difference. We're professionals. We have a calculated response. We have policies and procedures. And if we don't follow those, then we're in trouble. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And I hate to be the guy that says if you can't handle that, then maybe you got to go. But you have to know that everything you do is scrutinized, even more so than when I started. When I started, you got a cameraman who's filming the upper corner of the ceiling, and now you got Steven Spielberg there doing a use of force. So yeah. I mean, everybody's got body cams. There's cameras in all the cells. I mean, so you have to do, and like Russ said, something that's counterintuitive to what you ask. What would the public think? Well, what would the public think if somebody threw a glass of piss in their face? Well, they'd be upset. But we're held to a higher standard. We're the professionals. We're the ones walking the tier, and we got to take responsibility for our actions at that point.
Yeah, and guys, when those cameras are on, you have to be, well, at all times. Don't get me wrong. That came out a little wrong, but hear me out. I think what we're getting at is they're videotaping your professionalism, because I'm going to tell you something. There's an expected behavior that they're expecting to see from the inmate. But they're holding you to a higher standard, and they want to see how you react. And God forbid you're not professional on that video. All this stuff gets utilized later on in courts. And Russ, I know there's a lot of stuff you want to unpack here. So what do you got, Russ?
Well, yeah, it's that thing that it just get back to is no one says you have to like the way it is, and I think that most of us don't at least part of the times. But you know what? We all raised our right hand. We all, said the oath and things like that. And if we really want to separate ourselves from what the predominant inmate population represents, these are the things that we do. Is we don't retaliate. We do act professionally. When we use force, we use it according to law and policy and the best of our ability to understand and interpret it. And so that's what sets us apart. That's what makes us not predators. That's what makes us, the people that are the saviors of the moment, if you will.
Yeah, and guys, I think the key here before we wrap it up is that this is when use of force is prepared. You have to really make sure it's needed in that preparation, because again, it's not a reaction. It's like, hey guys, do we really have to go in there for a shampoo bottle? Do we really have to OC the person just to get a shampoo bottle? Because what's our objective? We don't want to be splashed again, correct? So if I secured the food port based on human error, maybe, well, what's likely of me getting splashed again? Highly unlikely. So, it's a lot deeper than just getting the shampoo bottle. The shampoo bottle isn't what really gave the person the main opportunity to do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, that became the tool, but the opportunity occurred based on either complacent efforts or mistaken error. I get it, but having said that, once you fix the concern and you shut that food port,
right,
he can have the shampoo bottle all day. He can fill it up with shit all day, because then the next time you go to see him, back in the cell.
Right.
You're not going to open it up when the shampoo bottle is in his hand or her hands. And you're going to position yourself correctly. So having said that, the correctional objective is always going to be, what's the chance of them splashing me again? Do I have to get them out? Yes. Why? Open bar. Do I have to get them out this time? No. Why? Closed door, food port. It's closed.
Well, that's
shield in the crevice. What do you got?
that's easier to explain why you say you didn't feed him lunch or you didn't get him outside to rec. You could write that report. Why didn't you do that? Well, because he had a milk carton full of shit and he wouldn't put it down. He wouldn't back away from the food part. That's a lot easier to explain and to deal with than why did you go in and do a use of force on this guy? Oh, because he had a shampoo bottle in the corner of his cell with some piss in it. I mean, it's just there's a lot more tools. There's a lot more steps before that even takes place, or after that takes place, before using force, that it is so much easier, and there's less liability on the officer. I'm not even talking about the facility. That's that's for the management to deal with. But for officers, when you're the whole key is when somebody asks you, why did you do this? You have to be able to justify whether you didn't serve them lunch, whether you closed the food port, opened the food port, whether you went in and used force. If you can justify your actions based on your policies and procedures, then you're going to be fine. Yeah. But as soon as you step out of that, then it's a wrap. It's over with.
And then I also bring that supervisor in too. He's not going to the back of his cell. Hey, Sarge, stop by. And then, I don't know if it's going so far as writing him a refusal to direct order charge. So at that point, if he doesn't want to eat whatever it is, that's on him. I'm only giving you the order so you can eat. Now, if you choose not to do it, okay, then you don't eat today. That's not on me. That's on you because, again, my safety is paramount. But because it's something I got to do and I got to feed you, I want to make sure people know that I'm not denying you your rights. So I'm going to call the supervisor. Hey, Sarge, can you stop by? Maybe the Sarge will make an effort. And then all of a sudden, when he doesn't do it, 2 efforts, golden to me.
Put it right on the body camera.
Tried multiple times, golden. And yeah, and you said video if need be. If it's possible, you could. I mean, just to back it up. Most likely, once you put the camera on, that's when the inmate does the order. Right. Not all the time. Not all the time, but sometime. So before we go to closing, Will, you have anything you'd like to say?
No, listen, this is a great discussion. And I think that if you guys take nothing else from this, just think before you act. Play this over and over and over again. What Russ said, what Anthony said, career, because there's a lot of information floating around there. Tier Talk's done 1,000 shows plus, good information out here. But this right here is career-saving advice. That's it. You need to understand that this is not a deal where, oh, this is the management answer or these guys are soft. This will allow you to keep your job. If you want to stay out of jail, watch this video, do what this video says. That's it.
And guys, just to show you we care, my knuckles are still bleeding. I still drag them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Across the carpet. He's got gloves, Russ. He's got white gloves as he's dragging them.
Yeah, dude, I just got a petty and a manny. You know what I mean? So, damn. Hey, Russ, anything you'd like to say in closing with the topic?
I love, the fact that, Will hits on that. It's career-saving advice. It really is. And, I just want to get back to what I said a minute ago, though. You don't have to like it. There's some things that we have to live with that we just can't change. So, focus on the things that you do have control of. And what you do have control of is making sure you preserve that evidence, making sure that you preserve that inmate's rights so that he can stand trial and, get that pound of flesh, but get it the legal way.
Right.
All right, guys. And I just, my closing remarks is hopefully if you have anybody that's an FTO or in the training position, I think this is a video worth investing time in. If you want to give it to your troops, let them watch the whole thing, guys. I know people are like, "Cam, the videos are long, guys. This is your career." And to be honest with you guys, if we kind of go into the dialogue to see where it heads out. So a lot of the times when we ask ourselves questions, we're formulating these thoughts, and then eventually the momentum happens as the show progresses. That's how we go here. We got our thoughts, but then we discuss it out, and the strength of it is seeing it come to the ending. Because at that point we've kind of figured out all the thoughts, and that's why, as I said, me, Will, every time he comes on, Russ, we don't know. The last thing Will texted before he came on was, what's the topic? He had no idea. Russ had no idea. And then I'm like, okay, guys, ready? Let's go. Because it's what we do. Right. And either way, you know what? We'll learn in the process if we don't know the answer. And then we have enough evaluated experience where if someone teaches me something I don't know, I still know what questions I can ask to elevate the dialogue. So guys, career, I believe it will. This is some career-saving advice, definitely worth 55 minutes of your time. As always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.